Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Really? Trump is gonna save TikTok, y'all. That's crazy. This reminds me of Mr. Robot. Maybe I'll have to watch Mr. Robot again. I knew they were gonna save TikTok. I knew it. Catholics, what? Keep TikTok. There's a strong possibility that TikTok will shut down completely during a Supreme Court. The lawyer for TikTok said the app will go dark if the court didn't pause the ban. TikTok is preparing to shut down its app on Sunday. India banned TikTok? Weird. You could use a VPN to allow to access TikTok. Yeah. There's no way to stop the spreading of lies, though, because our whole environment is propaganda, so it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't really matter. From a bang, a cosmic bang. It's not rage bait. I can defend all these positions. I mean, you might give me a technicality on 3 because there's slavery in Egypt. So maybe I should change. I should change 3 to there's no slavery in ancient Israel. Maybe that's what I should say. Or virtually no slavery. Because I suppose there would be slavery in the case of like prisoners of war or like if you commit crimes. Just like in modern society, if you commit a crime, you lose your freedom because we can't have people running around harming people. How is Christianity the objective proof? Because to say something's like true, you need a system of truth. And nobody knows what truth is. Science can't tell us what truth is. Philosophers can't tell us what truth is. So unless truth reveals itself in the person of Jesus Christ, we wouldn't know truth. So since Jesus is necessary for truth, to deny the revelation of Christ would be to deny truth, which would be a contradiction. It would be absurd. Therefore, due to the impossibility of the contrary, Jesus is the truth. He is the ultimate foundation upon which we can reason, understand the world, do science. Christianity, well, Christianity isn't proven on a human standard. Christianity is proven as the necessary foundation for us to have any like objective standard of truth. So it's sort of proven as like you would prove logic. Like we can't deny logic because logic is necessary for truth. So we can't deny Christianity because Christianity is necessary for truth. Faith isn't about like believing something without proof because the apostles had lots of proof that Jesus was who he said he was because they witnessed the resurrection and they witnessed miracles. So the apostles had faith and they had direct evidence that Jesus was God. So it doesn't make sense that like faith is believing without proof because then that would be like saying the apostles didn't have faith, which would be nonsense. Of course the apostles had faith. Of course the apostles had direct evidence that Jesus was God. So there's no like contradiction between like faith and proof. You can have faith and proof. Like what Lennox said to Dawkins in the debate, like you have faith that your you have faith in your wife, right? That he would also have evidence, right? He would have, based on like an inductive experience, like many years of living with his wife, he could like trust her or like he would know her to a certain extent where he would have faith in her. He would have trust in her. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be based on a lack of evidence. It would be based on like a relationship, an experience over time, observations. Oh man, Ant. What else do you want your choose your own adventure Bible to say? I don't even know what that means. So we have like theologians and Bible scholars to interpret the Word of God. We're not like atheists. We don't just put our opinion into the Bible. We try to, there's Hermeneutics is the science of objective interpretation, not just for like the Bible, for any interpretation. So we use like a hermeneutical method to get the intent of the author, which would be like the intent of God, essentially, because ultimately the author of the Bible is God. Although he uses humans to sort of relay the message. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for. Yeah, because so basically before Christ there was no hope because we were condemned to unalive. But because Christ defeated death on the cross through the resurrection, now we have hope, and hope's necessary for freedom. So without hope, there's no freedom. Without freedom, there's no like Christian ethics, because unless our decision freedom gives our decisions and choices, like they make them matter. Freedom gives us like meaning and purpose. If we were just determined to do things, there would be no meaning or purpose to anything. What proof of Christianity is there? The transcendental argument for God. So, the simple way to think about it is that, like, science can't tell us what the truth is. Philosophers can't tell us what the truth is. And so the only way to know truth is if truth reveals truth reveals itself to us. And like Christ said, I am the truth. So if you deny that Christ is the truth, you will have no truth, right? And so, since to deny Jesus, the Bible, is to deny truth itself, that would be a contradiction, right? Because that would be to say the Bible is false would be like a truth claim. But if the Bible is necessary for truth, if Jesus is necessary for truth, you couldn't deny, you couldn't make a truth claim about Jesus not being true. That would be a contradiction. Therefore, due to the impossibility of the contrary, because you can't deny truth, then Jesus is the truth. That's like the simple way I could put it. It's not a God of the gaps fallacy. If there's a necessary relationship between God and truth, it's going to follow that denying Jesus. If Jesus is necessary for truth, then denying Jesus is denying truth. That's just going to be an entailment. And denying truth would be a contradiction. So that would be the proof. Unless you can tell me, can you tell me what the truth is that's not Jesus? Well, what is the truth then? Yeah, but what if Jesus isn't the truth, then what's truth? Could you tell me? Because if you're going to say Jesus isn't the truth, that is a truth claim. So how are you making truth claims? What's truth? Science is truth. I don't think there's any science experiment that tells us what truth is. I think science assumes a lot of things are true for science to be coherent. Science assumes many things that science cannot prove for science to be coherent. So I don't see how science can be truth. If Jesus didn't exist, then what's the truth? Jesus revealed himself as the truth. So if Jesus isn't the truth, then what's the truth? You guys are making truth claims, but you don't even know what truth is. It's goofy. Science disproves a lot of untruth. Science doesn't even make truth claims. Science makes provisional truth claims, which is saying, like, it's saying basically this is a best guess. That maybe evidence in the future will say that this guess is wrong. That's what science says. It doesn't even claim any truth, really. But of course, people don't know that, and they turn it to something that's not. Because we sent a man to the moon, and I have a toaster and a cell phone. My second claim has no, the transcendental argument for God is an objective proof that Christianity is true. No, it's not. Well, come up here and explain to me why it's not. I'd love to know, because the genius atheist philosophers have failed to explain to me why it's a bad argument. So, if someone could tell me, then I can just delete. I'll delete my TikTok account. Okay, well, if I'm wrong, I'll delete my TikTok account. Come up here and prove me wrong. What's the defeater? What's the counter argument? The transcendental argument for God is an objective proof for the Christian God. If I'm wrong, I will delete my TikTok account, but you have to tell me what's ultimate, identifiable, and defendable that's not Jesus. Good luck. 4 is an absurdity. How's no 4? I can easily prove 4. That's simple. Atheist philosopher Bertrand Russell said that humans cannot explain how science is possible because we can't explain the principle of induction. Yet, God's revelation can provide an explanation for the principle of induction. Therefore, science is only possible if you accept God's revelation. Very simple. Hey,
Okay,
Darth.
I am reading right now a book by Douglas. I'll probably botch his name, Futuma, who
Yeah.
wrote one of the best-selling undergraduate textbooks on evolution. Okay, it's in its fifth edition. It's a major textbook on evolution um, at a university level, and in fact, that author's book on evolution was the book that William Lane Craig studied to bone up on evolution when writing his book on Adam. But I'm reading Futoma. I'm gonna have to look it up how to pronounce that. His book is called Science on Trial. It's basically a polemic, a diatribe against creationism and pro-evolution. Here's what he says early on in the book. Science emphasizes evidence and deduction and is forever uncertain. It deals not with irrefutable facts, but with hypotheses that may be refuted by tomorrow's experiments and concepts formulated by fallible human minds. Okay? Now,
Exactly.
when we state this, okay, we get a lot of punk ass snarky responses. But here we have guy who's probably an atheist, I just found out that the very textbook William Lane Craig is relying on by this guy Douglas Futuma, okay, not only is he a very passionate anti-creationist and just a total dyed-in-the-wool evolutionist, he's also a very open homosexual and a promoter of the LGBTQ agenda. So this is who William Lane Craig is relying on. But be that as it may, the bottom line is what prompted me to join. Here we have somebody who is on their side of the fence, who says exactly the same things that we say. Okay?
No.
Science does not deal with irrefutable facts. They are hypotheses that may be refuted tomorrow. They are concepts that are formulated by fallible human minds, meaning nothing in science is to be considered an absolute.
And they don't even really make metaphysical claims. Like the Big Bang isn't trying to explain the origin of the universe, because the origin of the universe would be a metaphysical claim. And science doesn't make metaphysical. The Big Bang is just an explanation of an observation of what cosmic
And
radiation.
there's even a research paper out now that's calling into question the scientific interpretation and extrapolation of the so-called redshift of the cosmic background radiation.
The big thing is like people seem to think that science can make metaphysical claims, but it doesn't even like it's not even trying to do that. It's just like you're saying, like it's making the best guess based on like our perceptions of phenomena, not reality itself.
Okay, so we have Tiny stuff up here. I'm just going to let you know, Tiny, you are on extremely thin ice. I have your account blocked. Usually I just kick people off. But since we have such few viewers, yeah, you want to giggle? You want to get cucked off right away, big boy?
I don't even know you.
You want to be? You start giggling at me?
I don't even know you.
Sir, I don't block people without warrant. I'm a grown-ass man. I'm old enough to be your father, if not your grandfather. I do not block people out of spite or out of passion. I block people because they're either engaging in slander, defamation, or just being blatantly antagonistic. So giggle one more time and you're gone.
Okay, sorry, sir.
What would you like to say?
Why is atheism irrational?
It's not rational.
You talking about like local atheism or global atheism? Or both?
Well, I don't particularly care for those qualifiers, but I will at times use them because they are used in some literature by atheist philosophers. But atheism in general is simply the denial of gods, okay? Either the direct or the indirect, okay?
Okay, and why is that irrational?
Because it's a performative contradiction. Because in a world without God, there's no identifiable ground of all being that will can be presented to dictate or actualize what is or cannot be. There's no ultimate background information for affirmation and denial. So any affirmation and denial without reference to acknowledging the self-revealing God will be an affirmation and denial surrounded by ultimate mystery. So therefore, atheism is literally a performative contradiction. It is denying God, but not grounding an identity statement that will function as the negator for the identity statement of God.
Why can't the universe be God?
Well, asking me a question is not a rebuttal. If you do you accept that God is and that He's revealed Himself clearly through creation?
No, because if he did, I wouldn't be atheist.
Okay, now, okay, well, that's a claim that you're going to have to defend. Now,
sure, is God all knowing?
Now, hold on a second. Yeah. How? But by the way, how old are you?
21.
Okay. The question you're about to ask me is typically promulgated by young male atheists of your age bracket. It's usually a very naive and uneducated question. But go ahead, I'm prepared for
What
it.
was I going to ask you?
Go ahead.
So if God's all knowing, then he knows exactly how to reveal to me, correct?
Yeah. Do you know how many times I've heard this line of reasoning?
Do you have a rebuttal?
Are you finished?
Yeah, I mean, if he knows everything, then
Okay.
you're
So
saying he
you're
revealed
but
clearly.
what you're claiming, but you see what you're smuggling in here is an underlying claim that you haven't nor can you justify that the world is to be reckoned and cashed out as being independent and non-indicative and non-emblematic of ultimate design.
But God knows that there are people who can look at the
Okay,
universe and say that it's not
if
designed.
you listen to me, one of the sleazy tactics that atheists deploy. Okay, goodbye, punk cat, bye, little boy. 21 going on 14. One of the sleazy tactics that they pull. So he's giggling and he says he's in his early 20s. I don't believe him. Because if he is giggling in his early 20s, then I'm going to have to question
I don't
certain
know.
things about him.
A lot of these people will giggle. A lot of these atheists giggle at me, like, and I can see on their camera. Sometimes they're grown adults. So
So the point is he's not they make a series of claims but they don't back them up. How many times do we assert something and they'll go, that's a claim, that's a claim, support it, but they will make claims themselves and they will not support it.
well, like even the word claim is what unity, right?
Well, they think that they can invoke a model of reality that is has some semblance of intelligibility, right? But this is categorically false, right? Now, they can invoke a model of reality where there's semantic intelligibility, but there's not metaphysical intelligibility because there's nothing within the model that is identifiable and defensible as to what actualizes any identity states or unity among diversity. It's that simple. You see, they want to sit there because they rely on their stupid reasoning because they're not guided by logic and reason. They're guided by their own passion to preserve their false belief that they're autonomous players. And so they collect slogans and cliched thinking that are not robust. They're not philosophically sophisticated. And it's embarrassing for them.
Yeah, it really all comes down to the autonomy. That's like I think that's what I like about precept is it focuses on that they think they're independent of God, and we're like, no, you are not
Right?
independent of God.
So they'll just say, well, why can't the universe be eternal? Well, is that your claim? Because if you're going to attempt to deny God, you're going to have to present an identity statement in order to negate the identity statement that is God. Breathe into your microphone again, and I'm going to kick you. So,
What would you like to say, Zoom?
Yeah, how is Christianity objective proven?
when we look at the propositional content that has been codified within the Christian scriptures, presenting itself putatively as the revelation of God, within that content, it reveals God's attribute set. That attribute set, when understood, is exclusive. No other model of reality can have it in the past, the present, or the future. That attribute set of the God of the Bible is also indispensable. Just like oxygen and water are indispensable for keeping you alive, which you would not dispute, the property set of God being absolute, ultimate, self contained, eternal, omniscient, omnipotent, always truth revealing, and a salvific God, where we are right now in the midst of his plan of redemption. All of those attributes recognized compositely are indispensable for metaphysically grounding any concept of truth, reason, intelligibility, or to speak meaningfully about anything in the world. So, one thing that most atheists, and I would venture to say 99.9% of them, that they are oblivious to, is to what exactly it is they're rejecting when they reject God. They're just rejecting God as a cosmic, unimaginably a powerful mind who's going to get you if you don't love him. But what they are rejecting in God is a single, absolute, ultimate, causal first principle that is a mind that imposes and secures all the not only identity states, but all the different levels and categories of unity amongst diversity that's in the world. Now, whenever you speak, you're going to be taking for granted the principle that there are identity states, planets, stars, dogs, rocks, whatever, and that there are different levels of unity amongst diversity, right? So you have different classes of things. Since they reject that God is, and that God is the imposer of these things, and they couldn't speak intelligibly were these foundational parameters not true, then they're operating in principle that something else is what actualizes these foundational parameters and not God. Well, they like to smuggle in that it's something else, but they never step up to the plate and take responsibility for themselves to explain what the something else is. Nor could they. So atheism is not only irrational, it's utterly indefensible. When I ask one of the smartest atheists in the entire world, you look it up on YouTube, his name is Graham Oppy, to explain his naturalistic, materialistic model of reality without reference to the necessity God, and I basically asked him, and I'll paraphrase, what is it that actualizes and imposes any form of unity in the world, right? His genius answer, and by the way, he is a smart man, but his genius answer was, I see books on my shelf. Now, if one of the smartest, most educated atheists in the world in regards to philosophy, and having been a prolific author dealing with philosophical issues on atheism and philosophy of religion, if he can't answer that simple question, then he has no intelligible defense for atheism. So if he couldn't answer the question, why would we expect any other atheist in the world to be able to do so?
Yeah, well, I believe in a God with all those properties, but I'm not Christian. So what now?
Okay, so you believe. Okay, so I'm trying to think of how to properly respond to this because this is a typical childish response. So you believe in a triune God?
No,
Who
not
has?
triune, except
Oh,
triune.
okay. Well, you've now contradicted yourself
But
because
you didn't mention
the
triune
God.
originally.
Okay, you're not aware that the God of the Bible is triune.
No, I know, but that wasn't one of the properties that you
You're
mentioned.
not aware that we're advocating for the Christian God.
So is a triune God
You're
necessary?
not okay, sir. If you dodge one more time without further warning, I'm going to eject you because I consider that the double middle fingers in my face. Okay, because people who refuse to answer a reasonable question, they're cheating in a conversation. I don't play Monopoly with people who cheat. Now, are you telling me you were not aware that we are advocating for the God of Christianity?
No, I was aware.
Okay, good. So you're not, were you not aware until now that the God of Christianity is triune?
No, I knew that.
Okay, well, you told me your God has the same property set. The triunity of the God of the Bible is one of the fundamental characteristics of the nature of God in Christianity. So is your God triune?
No.
Okay, so your God doesn't have the same property set. Is your God is your God a Unitarian God?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So congratulations. You believe in an incoherent version of God because a Unitarian concept of God, that God cannot be perfect. Okay,
Why?
because in order to be perfect, you have to have all great making properties and have them without deficit or lack. So um, is your God a maximally personal being, or does he have a
No.
deficit in terms of his persona?
No, he's not personal.
Okay, then we're not talking about God. Then you see, the God of the Bible is a personal being. So again, now you've contradicted yourself again.
Why does he need to be personal?
Okay, well before we get to that, you're trying to balderdash your way out of here, like so many atheists do, and I don't even believe you that you believe in God.
How am I
I think you're.
atheist? I just told
I
you I
think
believe in God.
I think you're lying through your teeth, like so many atheists do, as an escape hatch for not having to accept the God of the Bible. Now, God being personal, right? You said your God is not personal. Then he's not God. Then, if he's not personal, how do you know that that thing that you believe in is there?
Because it was revealed to me.
Oh, so impersonal states of affairs engage in communication.
Yeah, we have a book.
Sir, listen to me. Lie to me one more time, and you're done. Okay. And you know what I'm going to do if you lie to me? Let me just look at your account. Oh, so you okay? So you're lying. Okay. Bye. I got you.
He's
Bye.
the poo-poo.
Yeah. His account was blocked the whole time. He was scamming us. Okay. So you see, this is not unusual. We get atheists coming up here lying through their teeth. Why do they do this? If atheism is so rational, why are they lying? Okay. I should have looked at his account right away. Welcome the one. What would you like to say?
Hello.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, first of all, I don't think God exists for myself, but I know that there is not such an argument to say so or to prove he's real. So I
So,
think
so,
you're
so, so your God denialism is irrational.
like, what?
Are you having trouble understanding my English? Is your God denialism rational or irrational?
I think is rational.
Good. Give me your rational unpacking of how there's no God.
Well, like I say, for me, it's not God is not real, but I know there is not such a proof
Okay, sir,
to
sir, that's
to it
strike one.
or
That's strike one. If you dodge, if you
no, no,
persist
no,
in
no.
dodging, I'm going to kick
Sir,
you.
sir,
You're
I'm
not
not
answering
dancing.
my you're not answering my question.
But
Don't
you're
don't try to
making a
listen.
question
Don't try
that
to. Okay, have a nice day. You're done. Okay, you're done.
Hitler, literally Hitler.
Yeah. Okay. You see how they try to lie their way out of it? I ask them a reasonable question, and then they just blather, and they're not addressing my question. Why should I continue to talk with people who blatantly, in my face,
You,
ignore my question while trying to pretend that they're answering my question?
you.
What would you like to say, sir?
I would say, okay, I have like two things to say, right? One, I have two claims. Well, one isn't a claim, but another one is. Okay, I think animal
How?
suffering
But before we go on, how old are you?
by 19.
Okay. Are you an atheist?
Um, yes, I would
Uh,
say, well, more like agnostic atheist, but yeah.
No, no, sir, listen to me. Agnosticism is a verbal camouflage concealing the indirect denial of God because they don't have the confidence to directly deny God. So either you acknowledge God or you refuse to acknowledge God, which will constitute either a direct or an indirect denial of God. And my analysis is ironclad. There's no way of escaping it.
So you think I'm lying to you?
Oh, I didn't say you're lying. Maybe you're just naive and uneducated. That agnosticism is a claim that doesn't hold up upon examination, that they're neutral toward God. An agnostic is not neutral toward God because the agnostic has already made a judgment that it is not necessary to reference the necessity of God when speaking or invoking propositions. So the agnostic has made several judgments about the non-necessity of God, all the while claiming that they haven't made a judgment. So agnosticism actually is what is called a performative contradiction. Its semantic content is undermined by its own position.
Well, I mean, I get the definition. Like I'm reading the definition right here. And I mean, like it doesn't even say
Yeah,
that they don't believe it. Like it just.
sir, listen to me. If I tell you that I'm Jeff Bezos of Amazon, does that settle the issue?
Why would they settle the issue?
Right. So agnosticism is a claim to not know or to believe. Okay. Thomas Huxley, who invented it in the late 19th century, was in fact an atheist, trying to conceal the fact to the British public that he was an atheist. So he hid behind the verbal camouflage of agnosticism. He's the one who
Well,
invented it.
well, I'm not
Okay.
just agnostic. Like I said, I'm an agnostic atheist. Like
There's okay.
if I get proven it.
Listen.
Okay, let's just
Okay.
say atheist, just for the sake of argument. Let's just
Listen.
say atheist.
I want to educate you today. Okay. The term agnostic atheist is a contradiction in terms. The reason why atheists don't understand that it's a contradiction in terms is because they are bastardizing the standard definitions of these terms. Both atheism and theism are judgments. Now, before I go on, do you agree and understand that both theism and atheisms are judgments about the existence or non existence of God?
Yes. Well, of
Okay,
a God.
right. So they're judgments about a creator or gods. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Makes no difference which way you want to cash that out.
Okay, okay.
So atheism and theism are, in fact, contrary to a lot of the stupid atheism that raises its ugly head on the interweb. Both atheism and theism are judgments about the existence of God. They're propositional, um, external to one's mental state.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
Agnosticism, invented by Thomas Henry Huxley in the late 19th century, right? Not slightly more than 150 years ago. Thomas Huxley said, an agnostic is somebody who will claim neither to know or to believe. It's not limited to knowledge as opposed to belief. An agnostic is somebody who claims to neither know or to believe in a proposition without sufficient justification. Okay?
Okay.
So agnosticism is claiming to not make a judgment about the existence or non existence of God. They claim they are without knowledge or belief. Now, when internet atheists try to bifurcate in saying agnosticism is without knowledge and atheism is without belief, okay,
Mm-hmm.
they're demonstrating their ignorance on the subject matter. Because if I said to you, I'm an agnostic um, about the Loch Ness Monster, I don't know that the Loch Ness Monster is in Loch Ness, but I believe that there's a monster in Loch Ness. If I tell you I believe that there's a monster in Loch Ness, am I still an agnostic?
Well, no, you
No,
said you believe in it.
no, no.
You s-
Agnosticism is to claim to be without knowledge or belief in a proposition in the
so you
affirmative or
think
the negative. I'm
You
trying to
got
explain to you, and I'm done explaining, that to
okay.
call oneself an agnostic atheist is stupid and uneducated because it's a contradiction in terms according to the standard
Okay.
definition.
Okay.
Now,
Okay. Hold on. Let me ask you a question.
sure.
Okay. I would say I feel like your definition is a little wrong there, but or at least the analogy of the Loch Monster was an equivalent.
These are standard
Dude,
philosophical
like
definitions. They are
you
not
said,
proprietary. Listen carefully. I'll shut up in a second. The definitions I'm giving you are standard to the English language and to philosophical reference works, and they are not proprietary to myself.
okay, well, I agreed with your definitions, but I didn't really like the Loch Ness Monster analogy, or
It
you know,
makes no difference what we could talk about aliens. Okay, the bottom line is this: to represent oneself as an agnostic is to basically attempt to communicate to your interlocutor that you are suspending judgment. You are neither believing or claiming to know that a proposition is true or false. This isn't rocket surgery. You see, people who are inept at defending certain metaphysical or philosophical concepts will at times try to bastardize language in order to deceive or to insulate themselves from their own personal responsibility to defend their position. Okay?
okay.
So if you by an act of your will refuse not to acknowledge God existence or to acknowledge that he hasn't revealed himself in creation, then you are a God denier. The fact that you may deny God indirectly rather than directly or to do so explicitly doesn't get you a get out of jail free card. You're still denying God. And this makes
Mhm.
people very uncomfortable because now they can't play this little verbal kabuki dance that they're neutral. Because nobody, you can't be neutral toward God. People claim they're neutral toward God, but it doesn't hold up upon a walkthrough.
Well, hmm, I don't. Well, I don't think that's true exactly. I don't think I'm denying God because like
Okay,
you think
sir,
he's real, but to me, wait, you haven't even let me talk at all. You've been talking,
the reason why I'm interrupting you right now
but you're not
is
even interrupting me. You've been
because
talking. You've been on a
did
monologue
you did you comprehend what I said earlier?
about agnosticism.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Did you digest that?
indeed.
Okay. So what is your rebuttal?
Or rebuttal about agnosticism.
What is your rebuttal that my critique uh, didn't show definitively that an agnostic can't be a neutral?
Um, well, because okay,
You need to give
yeah,
me a rebuttal to what I said.
okay, okay. Well, I feel like you made agnosticism sound kind of extreme. Like theism, it's like
Look,
absolutely believing in a God.
I'm getting frustrated
But you're
with
not
you.
even letting me talk. I haven't even
I'm getting
started.
frustrated with you because you're totally a deer in the headlights. You're literally reasoning with me like a teenager. I'm 3 times your age. You don't have the foggiest idea of what you're talking about.
Well,
Okay?
because you don't let me
Okay,
talk.
let me explain something to you, right? If proposition A logically and necessarily entails proposition B, and somebody affirms proposition A, are they affirming proposition B?
Mm, I would say so, yes.
Okay. Agnostics are invoking propositions without referencing the necessity of God. In other words, they can speak intelligibly about what is and cannot be in the world without reference to acknowledging the necessity of God. But that is an indirect denial of God. Because in the God world, all propositions will necessitate referencing the necessity of God, because in the God world, God is the ground of all being. All things would derive and depend upon God in the God world. So if an agnostic comes along and says, well, I'm not denying God, but I'm going to invoke propositions by choice without referencing the necessity of God.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Wait, what's the
Guess what they
propositions?
guess any proposition. If you
Like
say
what?
if you say the sky is blue and that this statement can be invoked as actual and intelligible, it will either be spoken of as actual and intelligible either with reference to the necessity of God or without. There's not a third alternative.
Isn't that an
Proposition,
alternative?
listen carefully. I'm just going to give you one more chance because I'm trying to educate you, right? A proposition will reference or will be without referencing the necessity of God, either explicitly or implicitly. It's called an enthymeme. An enthymeme is an unstated premise in a line of reasoning or in making statements. So when I say the sky is blue, implicitly, if not explicitly, it's referencing the necessity of God because I'm a Christian theist. An agnostic is choosing to speak and invoke propositions uh, without referencing the necessity of God. They are doesn't acknowledge does an agnostic acknowledge God's existence? The answer is
No.
no. No. So the agnostic is speaking propositions as being true and intelligible without referencing the necessity of God. So that's affirming proposition A that entails proposition B. What's proposition B? Is that God cannot logically coexist with any proposition that doesn't necessitate him. So the bottom line here is this: we're not going to play this game anymore. You can't be neutral toward God. Nobody can be neutral toward God. You will
Okay,
either
I'm an
choose
atheist.
to.
Okay, I'm an atheist.
Good. Explain to me why God doesn't exist.
Okay, okay. Number one, right? I think I would say animal suffering is a pretty big thing. I would say that.
How is animal suffering? Okay, so if we're in a world that is the product of God, then that means the world constitutes a plan of God, right?
Mhm.
Now, how is the good, the bad, or the ugly logically contradictory to the plan of God?
Wait, can you repeat that again? Sorry.
In a world where we might cite the good, the bad, and the ugly as a defeater for the existence of God, in order for that to hold true, you're going to have to show how these things are uh, they are negations of the plan of God. We're not just talking about God; we're talking about the plan of God. So what
Okay.
you're saying is that animal suffering will be a negation to the character and the plan of God. Well, do you know what the plan of God is?
Apparently not.
Well,
But
then how do you know that animal suffering is incompatible with God's either plan of creation or plan of redemptive history? Because
well,
when we look at the biblical narrative, the death and suffering that the Bible refers to is a temporal judgment upon mankind who was given dominion over this earth, and animals suffer because of man's sin, because God has decided to judge this world, okay, temporarily, on his way to fulfilling his plan of redemption. So, in order for your argument of animal suffering to negate God, you're going to have to show how it's incompatible with God's nature and plan. Can you do that?
okay, yes, I'll try. But you're gonna have to let me talk though.
Okay. How is animal suffering incompatible with God's plan?
Okay. Well,
You know
atheism
what?
compatible was, I think it's
You
simply just not
do.
even explained. There's just nothing
Look,
that
sir.
justifies the suffering.
Okay,
It
yeah,
explains
okay.
human suffering,
Are you in high
but not
school?
animal.
Are you in high school?
I am not. I'm in college.
Okay. Tell your
But
mom or dad or if you're working to put your way through school, you need to get a refund.
Well, I mean,
You see, this is how these college students are so brainwashed to turn out to be lefties, because what we just saw there was somebody who doesn't have critical thinking skills. Oh, I would have let him talk a lot more, but he very early on and through the interaction showed that he's completely incompetent. Right? I'm not going to let somebody babble. And you'll notice right out of the gate, after I explained something to him and asked for a response, he completely ignored what I presented to him. So when somebody right out of the gate ignores what I'm presenting to them,
well,
that's a harbinger of things to come.
we get these people that they think debate is their time to come up here and preach whatever nonsense they want us to talk about.
Yeah, they ignore what you're saying, and then they want to pontificate, about their view rather than to respond to the specifics that I presented. If you try to antagonize in the text, you're going to be muted or blocked, especially if you type in all caps. Bye bye, Helio. Oh, look at that. Helio is blocked. What a coincidence. It never ceases to amaze me the stupid reasoning that atheists invoke. It's just unbelievably stupid. I'm not saying it's stupid merely because I disagree with it. It's just fundamentally stupid. Oh, there's stuff in the world I don't like. I don't agree with God's plan. Good. How is it a defeater and logically incompatible with God's plan?
How would he even know an animal suffers?
Yeah.
That's a big leap, too.
Well, I think we can say that animals experience pain, but they don't experience pain the way humans do. Okay? They just feel pain. They don't abstractly think about pain.
Um, I heard, I was watching a stream before I went live where J Mike was talking. It's like crazy to think.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
He's
gosh.
saying, well, science hasn't determined what created the universe yet, but they could in the future. And I'm thinking, like, no, like, science doesn't answer questions like that.
Look. This is how dumb J Mike is. Okay, has he ever heard of Gödel's incompleteness theorem? Okay,
Yeah, they keep acting like science can answer metaphysical questions like that only really God can answer.
yeah. Welcome, Pooty. Are you an atheist?
It doesn't. He's connected now. He didn't connect. He wasn't connected yet.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hey.
Welcome. Are you an atheist?
No, I'm not.
What are you?
I believe in another dimension interacting with our dimension.
Okay.
And
All
that,
right. Bye, dude. Bye. Bye, little boy. Okay. We're not going to waste our time on that stupidity. I'll be right back.
I wonder what dimension you got that argument from. Yeah, this is a
I wonder
debate.
what dimension you got that from.
For real. What would you like to say? Are you a Christian?
I just had a question for you, guys. But maybe you can answer since Darth is gone. I was debating an atheist, in the normal lives that we do. And somebody said that logic, like the laws of logic, is the highest thing we can appeal to. And so we can't go beyond that. So that's what they were saying grounds everything. So I was just wondering what your guys' thoughts are on how you respond to that.
Logic
I
doesn't.
missed the first part.
Can you guys hear me?
He said he was talking to an atheist that tried to argue that logic can ground everything, but
Yeah, like the only highest thing that we can appeal to was the laws of logic.
Well, where are they establishing these claims of universality? By the way, you're not going to last very long here, Placide. Your microphone is muted.
Yeah, I wasn't sure on how to what to point out next to them.
Let me explain something to you. Okay, when God says, because they refuse to acknowledge that He has revealed Himself clearly in creation, they are without a defense, and it says they turned and worshipped the creation. What this entails is that they are constructing or confabulating a figment of their imagination, but cannot be grounded, it cannot be defended. Nor can they coherently explain their model of reality, okay, in terms of its ontological grounding. Okay? So whenever they make global or universal claims, given their model of reality, they're bluffing. They're like playing poker, pretending they have a full house and they have no matching cards. What do you want to say, Placide? Unmute your microphone.
I just wanted to ask one question, then I'll drop out. For number 4, science only works if Jesus is God.
That's correct.
I'm curious to know your explanation in regards to that.
Because Jesus Christ, representing the Godhead, is the single, concrete, causal, unifying principle for everything. So when you reject the lordship of Jesus Christ over creation, then you have no rational basis within your model of reality to ground the uniformity of nature as being true, okay, without which you couldn't talk about the meaningfulness of scientific endeavors.
Essentially, there would be no premise to do so.
No, there's no coherent or intelligible way to speak of your world. And to prove my point, I asked this direct question of one of the world's smartest atheists, Graham Oppie, and he couldn't answer the question. Because in order to talk about science or any other area of human endeavor, you're going to have to give an account of what is called the one and the many problem, okay, which is a perennial problem in philosophy about it can be the one and the many problem can be cashed out as which is more ultimate, the unity or the diversity in the world, and what accounts for the putative unity and diversity in the world as being actual, without which you couldn't speak intelligibly about anything, including scientific endeavors. The unbelieving world, which the Bible calls worshiping the creation, it's unidentifiable and it's indefensible. There's nothing within the system that can be grounded that actualizes whatever classes, categories, or levels of unity that would have to first be real and actualized in order to speak intelligibly. But the God of the Bible reveals himself in creation and propositionally in the scriptures as he is the ultimate absolute unifier of everything.
I agree with the underlying premise. I appreciate the
Oh,
answer.
so you're a Christian.
How you can identify the unity.
You're a Christian now?
I can't claim that I'm a Christian now.
But okay, well then but you see, you have no justification for that. If you do not accept that the triune God is the single, concrete, unifying first principle that imposes all the unity, the identity states and unity in the world, you're going to be operating in principle that something else actualizes that, correct?
Correct.
Good. What is that something else?
I would say Brahman is that something else.
Yeah, you tried this before. You keep on flip-flopping between atheism and Hinduism. So pantheism is not, for example, in order to have a single concrete unifying principle, you can't invoke a set. Okay, so is Brahman everything?
Yes.
Okay, is Brahman being everything? Is that one concrete thing that is not composed of any discrete particulars, wherein discrete particulars would just simply be an illusion? Or are there a plurality of discrete particulars within the set?
It would be one unified expression.
Okay, so you've just stepped on the landmine of Hinduism. Therefore, when you invoke verbiage of distinctions, they don't actually exist. Okay?
I would like to add that this is a huge problem for logic, because if everything is Brahman, then there is no such thing as not A. And if there's no such thing as not A, then you don't have the law of contradiction.
Yes.
And so there's no logic. So
And by the way, your God is insane because he argues with himself. Your God grapes himself. Your God molests himself. Your God unalives himself. Is that your God?
I get your point. I understand your point.
Yeah.
Appreciate the answers.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Darth, somebody said, how can you verify the unity, though, in the world?
The only way we can verify the unity as well as come to know anything is that we have to be on the receiving end of God's revelatory actions, which are much broader than what most people think about. So whatever God creates to come into contact with our self-consciousness that he purposes us to know will constitute a revelatory action. So there's natural revelation and special revelation. So if I know that I have 5 fingers on my hand, I'm looking at them right now, it's only because of God's creative and revelatory actions in creation that is the background facts without which I couldn't know anything. So because of God's mind and plan that he implements, actualizes, and sustains, can I know that I have 5 fingers on my hand, as well as anything else. Deny that the triune God of the Bible is what they say in theology, the principium cognoscentia, meaning the ground of all knowledge or the root of all knowledge, then you're going to have to explain how knowledge is even possible in a not God world. Welcome warning. What would you like to say?
Hello. I'm part of a Lutheran denomination, but I don't fully agree with all of the statements you put here.
So you're saying you're from a Lutheran background, but you don't agree with some things I'm saying. Okay, what don't you agree with?
Well, first of all, the fact that Christianity is objectively proven. I think the whole point of the religion is that there isn't enough actual factual evidence for it.
So
it's based on faith.
So Jesus Christ failed to self-authenticate himself?
No, it's just it hasn't
Did Jesus objectively authenticate himself?
In what way? I mean, yeah, he did.
Do you accept that Jesus Christ is the second person of the Trinity?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he objectively authenticate himself in terms of the content of his message as well as his appointed representatives? Did the propositional content that we have secured in the Christian scriptures reflecting Jesus' words and his appointed ambassadors, the propositional content understood compositely either succeeded in objectively authenticating itself or it did not? Don't confuse the idea of self-authentication with whether or not the receiver wants to retain it or accept it. Okay? So did Jesus fail to authenticate himself?
I mean, I guess not. But like
Okay, good.
the problem with
Now you've contradicted yourself.
how
Because what we're talking about is that the propositional content that God has revealed through creation, through the prophets, ultimately in the person of Jesus Christ, his words, his teachings, as well as the words and teachings and messages of his appointed disciples, codified in the Bible, when understood compositely, authenticates itself in that the properties of God, the triune God that he reveals, is exclusive and indispensable. No other worldview can have it. And if you don't accept that the composite propositional message of the Bible, of God, that it's the revelation of God, then you will instantly be speaking out of a different worldview. But the Bible says the unbeliever has no defense. There's no world to speak of. So when you say Christianity is not objectively provable, you are blaspheming Jesus Christ as having failed to authenticate himself. The fact that people do not accept the revelation of God does not mean that God fails to prove or authenticate himself, because human beings are sinful. The only way a human being can actualize not accepting God's revelation is to be in a state of rebellion. They're not in a state of being unconvinced. The Bible clearly teaches, Jesus taught, and the Bible taught, and the apostles taught, that human beings are in a state of antipathy against God in varying degrees. Okay, some worse, there's worse than others. So the fact that people who are on the receiving end of God's revelation and they just say, "Oh, well, that doesn't prove it," well, that's just a counterclaim. Have they proven that the propositional content of the Bible doesn't authenticate itself? Have they proven that? And by what authority? And by what authority would they be able to justify that the propositional content of the Bible doesn't prove itself? You see, the very judgment that they're making, that the Bible is not the self-authenticating and authoritative truth from God, in that instance, the person is proclaiming that their reason is authoritatively determining that the Bible is not the authoritative revelation of God. So is their so-called authoritative determination that the Bible is not an authoritative revelation of God, is their alleged authoritative determination, is that self-authenticating? Because if it's not, it's just blather.
You're like the point you're making confuses me a bit, because like, why would it have to be like self-authenticating? What like
Sir,
the whole
listen, because I will tell you why. It's because absent the revelation of God, both in natural and special revelation, then one will be in a condition where you will not be able to speak authoritatively about anything. Your world will have no identifiable background information to contextualize what anything is.
But it like it's like purely based on like evidence.
Let me ask, sir. You claim you're a Christian, right? A Lutheran. Okay.
Yeah.
Is the mind and purpose and plan of God the ground of all being? Does the mind and plan of God determine what everything is and cannot be?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Now, So what that means is that in order for something to be actual and to have an additional or an accompanying intelligibility which derives from the actuality, it's going to have to be grounded in the supremacy of the mind of God and how he reveals it. If one rejects that, then there's no way to speak intelligibly about your world, because if you start making identity statements or statements of unity and diversity, the cat is on the mat, the tree blows in the wind, the sky is blue, I want to know what the something else that's not God that grounds and secures whatever unity or identity states are in the world. What would that be? So you see, God's revelation is much broader than people realize. There's natural revelation and special revelation. Okay? God reveals himself in creation authoritatively, and he also reveals certain additional information through the prophets in Jesus Christ and through the apostles, propositionally codified in the Bible. And that's special revelation. If God's composite message required an independent defense, right, then God couldn't speak authoritatively. Did God speak authoritatively and in a self-authenticating way to Adam and Eve?
I think so.
Yeah. Did God speak in a self-authenticating way when he incarnated himself as Jesus Christ?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And the people who rejected Jesus' message, did they reject it because Jesus didn't provide sufficient convincing to them? Or was it because their hearts were hardened and they were committed to a work salvation rather than turn to Christ as a Savior to come to God through God's free grace and not earned?
I mean, yeah, back then he did
Okay,
provide
so
sufficient
we
evidence.
don't reason for God probabilistically, because then that wouldn't be a biblical argument.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you but like that doesn't like make it fully objective, because it's like fully like
Of course
based on faith.
No. Faith is just simply a term of trust and confidence, either with or without warrant, depending on the context. The word faith just simply means to believe and to trust, because we're not omniscient. But that doesn't mean we believe and trust certain spiritual truths or things that God has revealed to us without warrant or justification. I can believe every single historical narrative that the Bible presents as true on the authority of the supremacy of the mind of God and how he reveals it, and on the authority that the Christian worldview is the only rational worldview to hold to.
I am. I'm getting a bit confused here, but I.
Well, that's because you want to reason to and about God in an unbiblical way. You want to reason about God as though it's a probabilistic conjecture that God is the best explanation. No, God is not the best explanation. God is the only explanation. And anybody who rejects that has now fallen off the cliff into the abyss of absurdity, because then they're operating in principle that there's some other identifiable, defensible ground of being that provides for the actuality and intelligibility of facts. Since facts aren't rooted ultimately in the mind and the plan of God, then what ultimately is the final context for facts? Well, the answer to the unbeliever is, I don't know. Or they'll say something stupid like reality. So you see,
I guess
God
that makes
has,
sense. Yeah.
when you study the Bible, okay, we're constantly told in the Old and in the New Testament to renew our minds with the truths that God has revealed to us and has propositionally secured them in the scriptures. Because the world persists in corrupting people's thinking. Okay? People use faulty thinking, and even believers can be caught up in this. Okay? Into what comically is called stinking thinking. So when we read the biblical message and it's properly understood, okay, there's no other way. There's no other coherent or rational worldview to put on the table.
I mean, there kind of is, but there is no like coherent
Okay,
I don't
let
know,
me
like
explain something to you. One of the fundamental parameters of existence, without which we couldn't speak intelligibly, is the concept that there are individual identity states. The cat is not the dog, right? And that there are various states of unity and diversity. The cat is not the dog, okay? The dog is in the backyard, and the cat is on the mat in the house. This, for its actuality intelligibility, requires an underlying parameter that there are identity states and unity amongst diversity. Okay? Now, either we are going to acknowledge that it is the mind, the purpose, and the plan of God that actualizes each and every state of unity and diversity and identity states in the world, or we're going to be talking about these things without reference to the mind and plan of God. But then what actualizes the unity in the world? You just can't just sit there and take it for granted.
Okay.
Have you ever
that makes
observed
sense.
optical illusions?
Yeah.
What if all of what we believe to be our actual states of unity and diversity is just simply an illusion of human existence? I mean, I don't believe that.
Oh yeah, actually yeah, that makes sense because like the whole way that we perceive things
Okay,
is
right.
through
So do
our
you
brain
understand that?
processing it.
Well, it's not just your brain; it's your mind in conjunction with your brain.
Yeah.
Okay, and either our mind is ultimately indicative and emblematic of ultimate design and intentionality, the mind of God, and God gifts to us, GIFT. He endows us with the ability of certain foundational ways of reasoning to think like him, and therefore our minds can have a standard of proper cognitive functioning, or else there's not going to be an identifiable standard of proper cognitive functioning.
But the problem with that is that there are many like other species that can like do the exact same. For example, like sperm whales, they're like highly intelligent, and like
No,
dolphins.
don't confuse animal intelligence with the ability to abstractly reason. They're not made in the image of God. Okay?
Mm.
Only man was made in the image of God. These animals are not. And so in the animal kingdom, there's an all different levels of what we call sentience and animal intelligence. Just like there's all different, right now, we're in the midst of a revolution where all different types and levels of artificial intelligence are being created. There's some lower level forms of artificial intelligence, and there's other forms of artificial intelligence that are far more robust. Well, that's like the animal kingdom. Animals are biological robots. Okay?
I
Do you believe in
I
evolution?
Yeah, to an
Okay, well
extent.
there's the problem. Jesus said in Matthew 19, when being confronted by the Pharisees, do you not know that God, made them, Adam and Eve, in the beginning?
He did
Evolution.
make them. I believe that he insinuated the. I don't know if insinuated is the right word for it.
Look, you see,
They
you've been fooled that evolution is a powerful, highly grounded scientific theory. It is not. The fossil record does not exemplify gradualism. It exemplifies stasis. The fossil record is an embarrassment to Darwinian evolution. The genome of the animal kingdom could not have come about by random mutation. There's not enough time, even in a universe where there's trillions of galaxies. There's just it's not. It's an unimaginable number from our perspective. Do you know that one protein, that if you try to form the specific functional sequencing of a protein, you're talking about like 1 in 10 followed by 200 zeros. That's just for one protein. You see, we have been throughout.
No,
Let me explain something to you, okay? From the time of Adam and Eve were made in the garden up until now, the Bible makes it very clear. To the extent that we disregard what God has plainly revealed, we will then be instantly deceived in various degrees, depending on how much we depart from God's revelation. The moment Adam and Eve chose not to retain the revelation that God gave to them, they were instantly deceived, thinking that they could reason without reference to the authority of God. The theory. Did you know that Charles Darwin was an atheist?
Was he?
Yes, he was, and he lied in his own autobiography, trying to fool his relatives and the people of the Great Britain that he was an agnostic, when in fact he was an atheist. He came up with the theory of evolution in order to slay God, but he was smart enough to realize that let me explain something to you. Charles Darwin was smart enough to know that a frontal attack upon the existence of God would not work because people will dig in their heels. He was a student of Charles Lyell. Okay? Charles Lyell was the father of modern geology. Charles Lyell was a lawyer by training, right? But he wrote a monumental series of books called The Principles of Geology. Charles Lyell, although not an atheist and was more akin to a deist, wrote to friends of his that he wanted to undermine the biblical narrative of creation. He hated it. But he understood, as a lawyer by training, that he's going to have to dissuade people indirectly. And that was to convince them that deep time, billions of years, was true, which is an attack upon the biblical narrative. Okay?
I'm going to have to do some research into that because it really sounds like a conspiracy theory at this point.
No, it's not a conspiracy theory. You can actually Google it right now, where Charles Lyell, the father of modern geology, we have his personal letters where he specific, and I will quote him almost verbatim, that he despised Moses' account of creation and that he wanted to undermine it.
Interesting. But then again, there was also
Okay, hold on a second.
Wallace.
Did you know that Charles Darwin, when he went to college, he first went for medical school and he became disinterested. When he went back to college to study for the ministry, okay, he requested to become a member of the Plinian Society. The Plinian Society were equivalent to modern day atheists. Okay? When Charles, okay, have you ever heard of Alfred Russel Wallace?
Yeah.
Okay.
Course.
Alfred Russel Wallace and Darwin are attributed to being the co-discoverers of natural selection. They
Yes.
shared much in common, but they also diverged. Darwin believed that nothing in evolution was teleological or directed with a purpose. Wallace, on the other hand, believed that evolutionary development over long periods of time was teleological by a creator. And Wallace said in a paper, he wrote a paper in the Quarterly Review, right? He said that when it comes to human consciousness versus the animal kingdom, we're going to have to acquiesce to the divine will. What he meant by that was that evolution per se, the theory, cannot adequately whatsoever account for the magnitude and gap in human consciousness between that and the animal kingdom. Charles Darwin had a fit, and on his own personal copy of Wallace's paper, he wrote no in large letters, 3 exclamation points and 3 underlined. If you read a number of biographies of Charles Darwin, okay, or biographical research material, which I've had access to, they all record this, okay? Darwin had a fit, and he wrote a personal letter to Wallace saying, and
Yeah,
he
I'm
didn't want
aware
to,
of that. I've heard of that.
okay,
Yeah.
he wrote a series of letters. They wrote back and forth, okay? In one of his letters, he wrote kind of politely but sternly, I would not have believed that you wrote that unless I saw your name on it. And I'm of course I'm paraphrasing, but he wrote to Wallace saying, I hope that you have not murdered or schmurdered our child. Okay? So Darwin's theory of evolution was atheistic from the beginning. He just wasn't public about his atheism. He concealed it. The theory of evolution from the 19th century perspective was
I mean,
birthed
yeah,
in an atmosphere of atheism. Okay?
but
It was to
again,
explain, it is to explain the complexity and diversity of all life without reference to God whatsoever. God's not needed. Okay? It was atheistic from the beginning.
I mean, yeah, but it fills in all his existence, like fills in all the gaps of the current theory that was
Sir,
founded on
you're uneducated on the theory of evolution. The theory of evolution per se, a universal common ancestry, is a horrible scientific theory. Don't confuse that with studies about Mendelian genetics or population genetics, which we can observe, test, and repeat in the modern world. We cannot observe a universal common ancestry, nor can we observe that mutations can accumulate and produce extremely long molecular linear complex coding sequences that will result in a mind-boggling level of complex anatomy and physiology. Do you know that did you know that DNA was discovered in 1952? It's now 2025. We still don't know what much of it means.
I mean, yeah, of course.
Okay,
we don't know.
But guess what? But you know why? Is because of its intricacies and complexities, we still haven't figured it out. Okay? Now, the DNA code, I mean, it's even more complicated than I can even explain. All right? Now, I mean, when I say that, I don't mean to you. I mean, even myself, in the little study that I've done in biology, the level of complexity in DNA is just mind-boggling. The idea that chance could produce this in a large universe is ridiculous. I'm going to give you this quote, okay? You can take this to the bank. Dr. Eugene Koonin, he is a world-renowned expert on evolution and microbiology, okay? World-renowned, okay? He wrote a book, a highly technical book defending evolution from a microbiological level. In that book, it's called The Logic of Chance. You can check it out for yourself. In this book, several times, he says in the book that self-replicating systems, meaning evolution, is virtually impossible to occur in a one-off universe, but in a multiverse, it's guaranteed to happen. The idea that all you need is deep time in a large universe, and then you're going to get at least one lucky planet where we have evolution and complex life forms, is completely false from a statistical or probabilistic point of view. And even one of
something
the
had to have directed it at something being God.
but you see, evolution as it's formulated is not teleological. It's not directed. You're accepting.
I guess you'd call my view directed creationism or something. I guess something along the lines of that.
Well, show me any scientific textbook or biological textbook that expounds on evolution where it talks about how God, stuck his finger in there and made the mutations what they are. The bottom line is this: if you are a true Christian, if you've been born again and placed your faith in Jesus Christ to escape from eternal damnation, you have to understand: does the Bible teach that those who do not repent and turn to God as Savior, does the Bible teach that the people who refuse to do that they're all deceived? The Bible teach that?
Yeah.
Why is it then so hard for you to believe that this so-called scientific explanation is wrong?
Because it fills in a lot of the gaps the Bible has.
Well,
it goes the other way around as well.
What do you mean it fills in the gaps? The Bible's very clear that God made the world in 6 days. There's no gaps in the Bible. You are intimidated because the theory of evolution is dogma and is pervasive throughout the entire world. You told me that I had a conspiratorial mindset. I'm not suggesting to you that all these people are trying to deceive people. They have decided to give the God of the Bible the double middle fingers as to the biblical record being the revelation of God, and they have now exalted the mind of man and reason above the throne of the self-revealing God. Have they falsified creationism? No.
You're more concerned with like what human beings think of you than what God thinks of you, and that's why you want to like smuggle in these like scientific ideas into.
Well, Joy, come on up here and explain to me.
Explain to me
Hey, Joy, come on up and explain to me how evolution is a proven fact. I'm now reading a book by one of the leading experts on evolution who's still alive. His name is Douglas Fuedema. Okay, his textbook on evolution is one of the top textbooks used throughout colleges and universities and undergraduate studies. And here's what he says. He says this: science emphasizes evidence, but it is forever uncertain. Science does not deal with irrefutable facts. It deals with hypotheses that may be refuted by tomorrow's experiments. So where do you get this crap that evolution's a fact? Okay?
Not the current theory, no. Obviously.
Well, I'm not speaking to you. Look, sir. If you're sitting on a jury and you're only allowed to hear the prosecution's evidence and you don't hear the defense evidence, can you make an objective determination? No, you can't. Have you taken the time to read any of dozens and dozens and dozens of books out there of people who have PhDs in biology or geology or chemistry who refute evolution? No, you haven't. You just can't bring yourself to believe that there could be a worldwide deception that claims to be science could be false.
No, that could
No,
be true.
okay, sir, let me ask you this question, right? Do you believe that if we took a supercomputer, if we took all the world's supercomputers in the world, and we randomly generated ones and zeros in trillions upon trillions of distinct and separate threads, at any point that the ones and zeros are being generated, okay, at any point anywhere, would it produce the coding sequences for a rudimentary video game?
Depends on how much time you give it.
No, you're not understanding, because the improbability would be so vast that the amount of time that you give it could not accomplish the task. Okay.
I mean,
Okay. So let me,
kind of
sir,
like the
let me
monkey type, right?
let me ask you this question. Do you agree or disagree with Dr. Eugene Koonin, who is a renowned expert on evolution? He is an anti-creationist. And in his own book, Defending Evolution, he says evolution is virtually impossible to happen in a single universe. So it doesn't matter
Unless
how
it was
big.
directed, yes.
No, okay, but now you're not talking about evolution. And you see, here's the bad thing is, it's not that you just believe in God. You claim that Christ is your Savior. Jesus said Adam and Eve were made in the beginning. The beginning of what, sir? Jesus is referring to the first chapter of Genesis. Moses said that God made the world in 6 days. Okay? You are choosing to disregard Jesus' teaching because men of science say they figured it out. We're not dealing with observation, testing, and repeatability when it comes to evolution. You cannot observe and repeat and test the past. Do you know that one of the best arguments that they use till this day to support Darwinian evolution is antibiotic resistance of mutating organisms? Did you know that? And do you know
Sorry,
that
could you repeat that?
one of the usual arguments for Darwinian evolution is the observation that organisms that mutate become antibiotic resistant. Okay, but the problem with that is this: the mutations result in a loss of genetic information and a loss of functionality, and sometimes a loss of functionality can provide for a slight temporary increase in fitness. So, for example, imagine that the Russians developed a weapon that if they emitted a sound, it would cause the Ukrainian soldiers to either pass out or die. But all the soldiers who were hard of hearing would survive. Okay? So that's a loss of functionality leading to a temporary increase in fitness. The theory of evolution is garbage. Okay? And what we're talking about is a universal common ancestry. We're not talking about observing population genetics that we can observe and test today. Okay? Nobody disagrees that there's biological variation where there's either a reactivation or a dormancy of certain information in the genome where you have bigger or smaller or different musculature or height or sizes or a change in beak shape or something like that. That's completely consistent with creationism. It doesn't support Darwinian evolution. I strongly recommend you get a copy of a book called Refuting Evolution by Jonathan Sephardi. Okay, it's called Refuting
I might
Evolution.
check that out, yeah.
Yeah,
But
all right, thank you for
one
coming.
thing...
Yeah. You see how people are brainwashed by evolution?
It's just like science in general. They think it claims things it doesn't claim. Like they think it proves things, it doesn't prove things.
Darth, is that book that you just recommended? Is that in the Christmas gift?
That is in the creationist folder.
Okay, cool.
You will also find it within the Jonathan Safarti folder within the creation folder.
It reminds me of like when Jesus is tempted in the desert and Satan is like, prove you're the son of God. It's like they want people to believe them, so they submit to science and they go, okay, we'll believe in evolution, right? So
Well, hold on a second. Hey, Joy Sandy, you want to come up here and say that evolution is a fact, and then you want to say I'm a troll, ignore me. I don't see your keister up here defending your position. You're just a low-life drive-by. Why don't you come up on stage? I will let you speak uninterrupted and either defend evolution or you are free to criticize me.
I'm saying
But you will answer my questions.
there's a lot
So
of
are you willing to come up? Because if you're not coming up, then who's the troll, Joy Sandy?
social peer pressure to believe in evolution, and so people submit to
Whenever something is held dogmatically, pervasively in consensus, there's peer pressure,
right.
and the only reason why that can change is because there's a steady progress of defection, and Thomas Kuhn talks about this, where the old guard starts to die out, and the new guard is defecting from the ideology of the old guard.
Dark.
The problem with them is they bow down and worship the powers of human reason because we have cell phones, flat panel TV screens, and we put a man on the moon. It doesn't follow from these inventions and discoveries, therefore, them telling us about where all life came from is scientifically correct. It's just atheism in drag pretending to be science. It's materialism and naturalism pretending to be science. Welcome, Ryder. What would you like to say?
So I am a Christian, and I would like to put my point on evolution.
How old are you?
Me? I'm 15.
All right, you can't be up here.
You gotta evolve 3 more years.
Yeah, you got to be 18 to be on the panel. Darth,
hold on a second. Hold on, Doyle, come on up. If you're not a drive-by troll, Doyle, come on up and defend your statement. I don't think you have the intestinal fortitude to do so, Doyle. I put myself on the line on every day I'm on here streaming. I go onto other streams. I go onto this stream. I go onto my stream. Come on up. Otherwise, there's no reason to take your counterclaim seriously. Come on up, Doyle. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
What do you? Because I kind of heard you reference it, but I wanted to know what you were calling it. Because you said we do see, like, and with certain animals, like we see certain animals, like, change over time, as in, like, certain dog species change.
Well, first of all, the plasticity in the morphology of dogs is largely or almost exclusively the product of human selective breeding.
Okay.
Apart from human selection, we would only see relatively small variations in descendancy over time.
Okay.
Creationism, intelligent
evolution, or something different. Would you call that a form of
evolution? Just simply means change.
Oh, okay.
Creationists and intelligent design advocates completely agree that within the genomic code, there is more information in there than is actually actualized in what is called the phenotype. Okay, you have the genotype, which is the DNA, the code, and then you have the phenotype, which is the actual form. So some pieces of information in the DNA are dominant, some are recessive, and others are dormant. And sometimes through successive generation and splitting off, certain information becomes permanently dormant. Okay?
Okay.
So there's a type of biological speciation that all parties, both evolutionists, intelligent design, and creationists, can all agree upon. But the difference between the camps is this: there's no reason to believe observationally or statistically that mutations themselves, aided by selection processes, can incrementally build an unimaginable scaffolding of the genome of the animal kingdom. This is pure fantasy.
Right.
And when
Yeah,
you
I
look at
wasn't
it
sure what to
statistically,
call it so I don't confuse people.
Dr. Eugene Koonin, I cite him all the time. I'm not quote mining him. He refers to evolution as self-replicating systems. And he says that happening in a one-off universe, and by that, he's implying an extremely old and gigantic universe. He said it's virtually impossible to happen. Why? Because he understands what has to take place down at a molecular level in order for life as we know it to exist across the genomic spectrum. So why does one of the world's greatest defenders and experts on evolution say that it's virtually impossible, but with a multiverse it's guaranteed? Why would he include this if all you need is a universe that's just old enough and big enough? See, people don't understand. They think that I see people like this, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Brian Cox, and other materialist atheists out there talking about how many star systems are out there. Okay, fine. I don't have a problem with that. You could sit there and say that there are trillions of star systems. That's fine. That doesn't solve the combinatorial problem. Even with trillions of star systems, right? That's not enough time and trials for mutations to code for the entire animal kingdom.
Right. So do you still refer to these changes as evolution when you're explaining it to people? Because I normally tell people like I don't believe in the Darwin evolution stuff, but I do believe in I see changes.
Well, the word evolution simply used to mean, change. But today, ever since Darwin, it's referring to the neo-Darwinian synthesis. So I think it's preferable not to use the word evolution when talking about biological descendancy or biological origin, rather than we should use other words like change or variation.
Okay.
So as not to confuse people. If I'm talking about the evolution of the Corvette or the evolution of corporate systems in the United States, nobody's going to be confused about that. But when we're talking about the biological world out there, right? Evolutionists themselves are guilty of equivocation. They'll use the word evolution to refer to certain microorganisms that might mutate, have a loss of information, but because of that loss of genetic information, they are less susceptible to antibiotics and they survive and live on. But what happens is you have genetic entropy. Is that the more mutations that you get, it destabilizes the system and eventually they'll just die out. Okay? So the point is, the Darwinian evolution as it stands today, first of all, it's a big industry. Okay? And I'm not suggesting that these people are trying to deceive people. What they are committed to is turning their back on God as creator, and they're turning their back that God has revealed himself in the person of Jesus Christ, and that the Bible represents his revelation. They're turning their back on this, right? And they're committing themselves to a purely materialistic mechanistic explanation, right? Look, before Darwin wrote The Origin of the Species, it was called transmutation. Darwin's own grandfather wrote a very thick volume called Zoonomia, which talked all about transmutation. There's even a quote from Aristotle having to do with evolution and natural selection. What really made the rubber hit the road was because Darwin came up with a seemingly plausible mechanistic explanation that would drive the transmutation of species. So before Darwin, they didn't have a plausible mechanism that would drive the transmutation, train. Okay, but natural selection itself is eliminative. It's not creative. So there's a whole lot of storytelling that is not observable, testable, repeatable within the defense of Darwinian evolution, but your average person out there can't tell the difference because either they're not motivated or they haven't investigated the counter arguments of this stuff. I mean, to this day, I'm still having to educate people on telling them, no, the appendix is not vestigial. The appendix is a part of your immune system. They used to say that your tonsils was vestigial. But they don't remove tonsils anymore, only in the most severe cases, because they recognize it's a part of your immune system. By the way, in the Christmas present, as well as in the folders that are unsorted, there is an unimaginable amount of books on defending creationism, intelligent design, and refuting evolution. You have more resources there than you're going to be able to get to in your one lifetime.
Well, I'm excited to read some of them.
Well, you know what? Make a backup copy. So in case that first copy, for whatever reason, crashes or whatever. Because if it crashes and I kick the bucket, you're not going to have access to it. Yeah, always make backup copies of your important computer stuff.
Yep, definitely. Somebody said that existence grounds everything, and I've heard that a few times.
That is a colossally stupid statement. It doesn't mean anything. Existence is not a predicate. Existence just means something that possesses properties as properties are actual. Existence itself is not a predicate. Okay?
Gotcha. Yeah, so it can't ground anything.
Yeah. Yeah, so what people will talk about, they'll talk about reality or existence. What they're doing is what Van Til says. They are absolutizing statements of abstraction. All right? It's not that abstractions are fictional, right? But we can only speak, we can only absolutize statements of concreteness, not statements of abstraction. And so what unbelievers do, because they want to give the double middle fingers to God, because they think that they're going to get away with it when this life is over, they're not taking God seriously. They reject the revelation of God in creation, and then they confabulate a make-believe world that there's just a natural world without God, but that's not a world that they can put on the table and defend. It's even more irrational by their own standards than the Christian worldview that they reject by their standards. That's how bad their position is. Okay? See, when you understand the biblical worldview and know how to ask the right set of questions, the atheist has nowhere to go. Dr. Graham Oppy, one of the smartest atheists in the world, when I asked him to give a coherent and intelligible account of naturalism, I said, what is it other than God, since you don't believe in God, that actualizes the unity in the world? And his answer was, I see books on my shelf.
Right. I had somebody say that today, that they said, oh, how, when I was asking them a similar thing, they said, oh, because I can see a tree.
Okay, so what they're invoking is an experience of phenomenon. Okay, so they're invoking a model, right? So what's the final context that grounds the model out of which you say, I can see a tree. These are people who are uneducated on this topic metaphysically. They're inept. They're uneducated. Telling me you can see a tree, I don't dispute that you can see a tree. I accept that you can see a tree because you're in God's world. But when you claim that you can see a tree, that's actual and meaningful and intelligible without reference to God, okay, I'm going to take you up on your offer. Please explain that. And they won't be able to, because they're going to have to give an account of unity and diversity in the world. They're going to have to give an account of the uniformity of nature. Is there something that is invariant that secures the regularity of nature? Is there something that is real, identifiable, and defensible that is demonstrable, that this is not a colossal world of just randomly occurring things, and that there's no correlativeness or connectiveness between anything? They're rejecting that God is the one in whom we exist within his plan. Okay, fine. If you're going to claim that you're unconvinced that you're in God's plan, then you need to explain your model of reality. But they know they can't do it because they don't want to acknowledge God. And so they say stupid things like reality, existence.
Now, when dealing with the unity, is that when you talked about it earlier? Like, is that when the one and the many come into play?
The one and the many is a more formal representation of the issue of unity and diversity. So the one and the many problem in philosophy is, how do we answer the question, which is more ultimate? Is it the unity in the world or the diversity of the world? Is one more ultimate than the other? And what is it that actualizes the realness of unity and diversity in the world, so that we can talk about the cat on the mat and that the cat is not the dog? By the way, I notice in the text chat, I have a lot of people that are objecting, but none of you have the balls to come up here.
Yeah, somebody asked about when you were talking about the one and the many, wouldn't that be a God of the gaps fallacy?
No, when anyone who invokes that something is a God of the gaps is actually operating from chance of the gaps. I have never heard any Christian or theist give a God of the gaps argument, ever, in my entire life. It's a fictional occurrence. The God of the gaps is, oh, there's stuff we don't understand in the world yet, therefore God did it. That's not our position. The Christian position is, you can't understand anything when you are dismissive that God is the creator and the sustainer of the order that's in the world. So when you notice they say God of the gaps, everything in their world is a gap. They can't even explain identity. They can't explain unity. They can't explain laws of nature. They can't explain laws of logic. And yet they sit there and they naysay and they mock and they ridicule in the chat, and none of them have the balls to come up here because they're cowards.
Yeah, and then they responded again, how can you know God's mind? And that would be because God has revealed it to us.
That's right. Our position isn't that I'm not doing leaps of logic to explicate God's mind. God has revealed his mind through creation and through the prophets, ultimately in Jesus Christ, propositionally codified within the Christian scriptures. Okay? I don't care if you choose to dismiss that, because the moment you're dismissing, making a counterclaim that the human mind speaks authoritatively without reference to the mind and authority of God. Good, support that. Why is human reason able to speak authoritatively about anything independent of God? Explain that. What's the proof of that? isn't it amazing how they simply just persist in, trolling in the text, and none of them had the balls to come up. Welcome, Matt. What would you like to say? Oh, sorry, Matt. You're blocked. Bye-bye.
I got huge.
Bye-bye, scumbag. People get blocked because they're purposely in the chat whenever I appear, where they go out of their way to try to antagonize me. If you're going to go out of your way to try to antagonize me, and I am so compelled to block your account, then why are you wasting your time coming up here? No, I'm not scared to debate. I just have a general policy that I generally don't want to talk with people. You want to prove I'm not scared, big boy? Come on up.
He's the guy you removed.
I think somebody muted him.
Because he's the guy you removed. He was already up here.
Matt.
Yeah, he's the guy you removed just now.
Yeah, I know. I told him he wants to sit there and do a little teenage toy. I'm afraid of him. No, I'm not afraid. I'm just a grown ass man that I'm not going to put up with people that are such scumbags in the various chats in streams that I'm on. That if I have to go out of my way to block your account because you're being a complete ass, I don't want to talk with you. Doesn't mean I'm afraid of you. Come on up, Matt. Send an invite request. I'll talk with you. I'll expose how shallow you are. I'm not afraid of these people. I'm not afraid of any of them. But there are a small number of people who have a chronic history of disgusting and vile trolling that I won't talk with them.
Yeah, one of them is hilariously trying to say that in 1 Samuel chapter 15 through 13, that is God encouraging abortion. And that's God telling them to, he's telling Joshua to, or not Joshua, but Israel to do the judgment on the Amalekites. And they're bring them all to destruction.
Yeah, these people are just morons. All right, guys, it's getting late for me. I'm going to go to bed. But once again, we see,
me too.
We see how shallow and what cowards the unbelievers are. They won't come up.
Yep. Well, thanks for coming, Darth. I'll see you
All
later.
right, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
All right.